What if Anakin defeated Obi Wan on Mustafar? How would that change everything we know? Flames rise, lava flows, and we hear the hum of lightsabers clashing. The epic battle between Obi Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker rages on, each move packed with intensity. The air crackles with the tension of a master and apprentice turned enemies. Obi Wan stands on the high ground, his voice carrying both warning and regret.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
In the original timeline, we know Anakin's overconfidence leads him to jump, and Obi-Wan strikes him down. But what if, in this moment, Anakin made a different approach? Anakin glares at his former master, eyes burning yellow with rage. He calculates the distance and power within him, but instead of a reckless leap, he channels all of his anger, pain, and the full strength of the dark side. He jumps, but this time, higher, much higher than before. His leap isn't just fueled by hatred, it's guided by precision. Obi-Wan swings his lightsaber, expecting to strike Anakin in midair, but he's too high. Anakin flips over Obi-Wan, landing behind him gracefully. Surprised, Obi-Wan turns, but it's too late. Anakin strikes, their sabers clashing violently once more. This time, Anakin has the advantage. Fueled by the dark side, his strikes come faster, stronger. Obi-Wan, worn down from the lengthy duel and the emotion of battling someone he once loved, begins to falter. A final, powerful strike from Anakin knocks Obi-Wan's lightsaber from his hand. Obi-Wan stumbles back, defenseless. He looks up at Anakin, seeing the face of the boy he once trained, now twisted by the dark side. "Anakin, please," Obi-Wan pleads, his voice heavy with sorrow. Anakin hesitates, his lightsaber raised. For a moment, we see the conflict in his eyes, remnants of the Jedi he once was. But the dark side is too strong. His face hardens, and with one swift motion, Anakin strikes Obi-Wan down. Anakin stands over Obi-Wan's lifeless body, breathing heavily. He feels a strange emptiness, the satisfaction he sought eluding him. The heat of Mustafar is suffocating, the molten rivers below reflecting the turmoil in Anakin's soul. Obi-Wan lies motionless, a reminder of the man Anakin used to be, the ideals he once held. But now, standing over his former master's lifeless body, Anakin feels no victory. The lava still roars beneath him, but inside there is only silence, a void where his triumph should be. He stares at the crumpled form of Obi-Wan, breathing heavily. His hands are still clenched around the hilt of his lightsaber, knuckles white. But the battle is over. He won. He has embraced the dark side. So why does he feel so hollow? Suddenly, a tremor in the Force breaks through his thoughts. Padme. Her presence is weak, fading. His heart clenches as fear floods through him. He was supposed to save her, to keep her from the death he saw in his visions. She's still alive, he realizes, but not for long. Without another thought, he turns and runs. Anakin finds Padme lying on the ground, unconscious and fragile. Her skin is pale, her breath faint. He drops to his knees beside her, pulling her limp body into his arms. His heart pounds with desperation. There's no time to waste. Mustafar's heat pulses around them, but Anakin has only one focus now, getting her to safety. Scooping her up, he strides into his shuttle, laying her gently on the floor as the engines roar to life. With trembling hands, he punches the coordinates into the navigation system. As the ship ascends into the atmosphere, Anakin stands over her, every second weighing heavily on him. He reaches out with the Force, trying to sense her life force, but it's faint, too faint. His breath quickens, and fear begins to mix with his anger. I won't let this happen, not after everything I've done. Minutes feel like hours as the shuttle nears its destination. A medical facility appears on the horizon, nestled deep within an asteroid belt, hidden from the galaxy. Anakin brings the shuttle down hard on the landing pad, the engines screeching as they power down. He's out of the cockpit before the ramp even touches the ground, carrying Padme in his arms as he rushes toward the entrance. The doors slide open to reveal the sterile, cold interior of the medical center. Medical personnel rush to meet him. Their expressions are tense, sensing the severity of the situation without a word spoken. One doctor gestures for Anakin to follow, and they quickly guide him into the emergency wing. "We need to get her into surgery immediately. She's not stable." Anakin's jaw clenches as they begin wheeling her away. He stands frozen for a moment, watching as the doors to the operating room slide shut, sealing him off from the only person he truly cares about. He feels the anger rising again, anger at the doctors for being too slow, at the galaxy for being so unforgiving, and at himself for failing to protect her sooner. But under all of that, beneath the rage and fear, is a deep, gnawing sense of loss. He paces the hallway, every second unbearable. The sounds of medical equipment hum faintly in the distance, but his mind is elsewhere, on Mustafar, on the promises he made, and on the vision that led him down this dark path. "I did this to save her. I gave everything. It can't end this way." The cries of the newborn twins fill the room, but Anakin's focus is solely on Padme. Her breathing is faint, her skin pale, her life slipping away faster than he can bear to admit. The doctor, standing beside her, shakes his head grimly. "We've done everything we can," he says softly. "She's not going to make it." Anakin's chest tightens with a surge of anger and fear. He towers over Padme's bed, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. His jaw clenches, and his yellow eyes blaze with fury. This was not supposed to happen. "I did everything for her." The doctor's words barely register as Anakin drops to his knees beside Padme's bed. He takes her hand, cold and limp in his own, and cradles it between both of his hands. His breath is shallow, his mind racing with thoughts of the dark side, of the power he was promised, of the future he sacrificed everything for.
"Padme, I love you more than anything. You have to stay with me."
Tears well in his eyes, but they are not tears of redemption. They are tears of possession, of fear. Anakin cannot accept the idea of losing her, not after all he has done. His hands tremble as he grips hers tightly, as if his sheer will could force her to stay alive. "Don't leave me," he says, his voice more commanding now, the desperation creeping into anger. "I need you, Padme. The galaxy is ours now. We are supposed to rule it together." Anakin's heart pounds, but not with the light of love. It's driven by the same obsession that pushed him to the dark side. His yellow Sith eyes burn with intensity as he pleads with her, his tears falling unchecked down his face. Padme, fading in and out of consciousness, stirs slightly. Her eyes flutter open, weakly focusing on the face of the man who was once her husband, now unrecognizable in so many ways. But as she looks at him, through the tears in his eyes, something in her stirs. The connection between them, the bond they once shared, pulls her back from the brink. Her breath becomes steadier, her grip on life tightening. Anakin feels it too, her presence becoming stronger, her heartbeat stabilizing under his hands. She's alive. She's staying. Anakin's grip on her hand loosens, but the turmoil inside him doesn't. The power of the dark side still burns within him, stronger than ever. But even as he watches Padme's life stabilize, there's no relief in his heart. He saved her, but it wasn't the power of the Sith that kept her alive. It was something deeper, something he can't fully grasp. He stands, his face still streaked with tears, but his expression hardens as he looks down at the mother of his children. He did everything to save her, to build a new life with her, and now she lives. But the galaxy around them is different now. He's not the man she once knew. He's Darth Vader. The twins, Luke and Leia, are presented to him, small and fragile in their cradles. Anakin picks up his son first, holding the newborn carefully in his arms. Luke stirs but doesn't cry, and Anakin's dark, corrupted heart softens only slightly. He gazes down at his son, feeling the weight of the future resting on him. This child, this boy, will be part of the empire he envisions, the future he fought for.
Next, he picks up Leia. His grip is careful but firm, and as he stares at her, there's a flicker of something he can't quite name. It isn't love in the way he used to feel it. It's control, destiny, a bond tied to the power he now wields. These children are his legacy, the future of the empire he and Padme will rule. But they are also innocent, untouched by the darkness he has embraced. As he stands there, holding his son and daughter, Anakin doesn't feel the peace he once sought. The dark side still courses through his veins, and his eyes remain clouded by the hunger for power. But now, that power feels incomplete. He has what he wanted, his family, but something is missing. The emptiness lingers, and it gnaws at him. He walks slowly to Padme's bedside, still cradling the twins, and places them gently beside her. She is awake now, her eyes weak, but filled with a mixture of emotion, relief, confusion, sadness. Anakin stands over them, his heart heavy with the knowledge that despite having everything he fought for, the darkness within him will never allow him to feel whole again. He wipes the remaining tears from his face, his eyes flashing yellow once more as he regains control of his emotions. There is no turning back for him now. The galaxy is still his to take, and his family will live under the shadow of his empire. Padme lives, the children are born, but the man who loved them is gone, replaced by Darth Vader, an emperor in waiting. The comlink on his belt beeps softly. Anakin's jaw tightens as he knows who it is before even looking. He steps out of the room, leaving his family behind as he answers the call. A hologram of Darth Sidious materializes before him, the Emperor's face shadowed beneath his dark hood, his voice low and serpentine.
Lord Vader, I can feel your victory. Obi Wan Kenobi is no more.
Anakin doesn't respond immediately, his mind still lingering on the sight of Padme, pale but alive. Sidious senses his apprentice's hesitation and narrows his eyes.
You have done well, but the time has come for you to take your rightful place at my side. The galaxy is ours, and the final remnants of the Jedi will soon be extinct.
Anakin's hands tighten into fists, his face impassive. He knows his master's expectations. The destruction of the Jedi was only the beginning. But standing there, with the weight of his family in the next room, something shifts within him. A realization that even as Emperor, the dark side has not delivered on its promise to fill the void inside him.
I'll return soon, my master, but Padme and the children will come with me.
Sidious's hologram flickers for a moment, a calculating look crossing his face.
Of course, Lord Vader. Your family will have a place in the new order. They will serve as a reminder of the strength you have gained.
Anakin ends the communication abruptly. He knows Sidious well enough to understand the underlying threat. The Emperor will allow Padme and the children to live, but only as long as they serve his greater purpose. The galaxy may be Anakin's to rule, but Palpatine's shadow looms large over his every action. Padme slowly awakens, her body weak, but her mind racing. The soft cries of her newborn twins, Luke and Leia, ground her, their presence filling her heart with love. Yet that love is clouded by a heavy dread as her eyes meet Anakin's. Yellow, Sith corrupted, and full of the dark power that has overtaken him. Anakin stands at the foot of her bed, his expression intense.
You're safe now. We have a family, Padme. The galaxy is ours.
His words, once meant to bring comfort, now send a chill through her. This is not the Anakin she fell in love with. He speaks of power and control, of ruling the galaxy. The warmth, the compassion. It's all gone, replaced by cold ambition. She wants to run, to take the twins and escape from the darkness that surrounds him. But there is no escape. Nowhere in the galaxy is safe from him or the empire he serves. Her gaze shifts to her children. They are so small, so innocent. Leaving isn't an option. If she tried, she'd lose them, and they need her now more than ever. She swallows the rising fear, her heart aching with the weight of her decision. She can't leave, not with them so vulnerable. "Anakin," she whispers, her voice barely audible. She stops herself from saying more. She knows he won't listen, not to the Padme who wants the man he was, not to the part of her that fears the monster he's become. But as she looks into his eyes, past the darkness, she catches a glimpse of something buried deep. The man she loved is still in there, hidden beneath layers of rage and power. She clings to that belief, to the hope that maybe, somehow, he can be saved. She turns back to her children, pulling them closer. They are her reason to stay. She can't abandon them to be raised under Anakin's dark shadow. Even though the man standing before her is a Sith Lord, some part of her still believes that the old Anakin might return.
Anakin watches her in silence, believing he's saved her, believing that they can now rule the galaxy together. But Padme knows the truth. She's trapped, bound to him by their children and her faint hope that one day the darkness will release its grip on him. The Imperial Palace is grand, but cold, its dark corridors a reminder of the iron grip the Emperor now holds on the galaxy. Anakin steps forward, bowing slightly, but Palpatine's eyes linger on Padme and the children.
Lord Vader, you've done well. The galaxy is nearly under our complete control. Soon, nothing will stand in our way.
Anakin nods, but something about the way the Emperor looks at his family unsettles him. Palpatine's attention lingers too long on the twins, his smile thin and calculating.
And your family, such a strong foundation for the future of the Empire.
Padme forces herself to remain calm, but inside, her unease grows. She can sense the danger beneath Palpatine's words. He sees her children not as Anakin's legacy, but as tools to be shaped and molded for his own purposes. Palpatine dismisses them for now, but his influence over Anakin only deepens. In private, the Emperor constantly reminds Anakin of his power, of his place as the enforcer of this new order. Yet, Palpatine also senses a weakness in his apprentice, a lingering attachment to his family that could threaten his control.
You must not let them hold you back. The galaxy demands strength, Lord Vader. Attachments lead to weakness.
Anakin listens, but deep down, something in him resists. He tries to push it aside, but the bond with his children and with Padme remains. The dark side brought him power, but it hasn't brought the peace he once sought. In the Imperial Palace, Padme is no longer a senator or leader. She is merely the wife of Darth Vader, a figurehead for the new regime. But within her, the fire of resistance still burns. She is determined to protect her children from the darkness that surrounds them. She watches Anakin closely, seeing the internal conflict that he tries to hide. The man she once loved is still there, buried beneath layers of anger and ambition. But she knows she can't reach him, not yet. So she waits, silently. She smiles when she needs to, speaks little, but always keeps Luke and Leia close. Every day, she feels Palpatine's eyes watching her, measuring her, waiting for her to make a wrong move. She knows that the Emperor sees her as a potential threat to his control over Anakin. Padme spends her time with the twins, keeping them isolated from the dark influence of the palace. She quietly educates them, showing them the values of peace and compassion, instilling in them the ideals she once fought for. But she knows it's a delicate balance. Any sign of defiance, any attempt to openly resist Anakin or Palpatine could endanger them all. Still, she holds on to hope. She believes that the old Anakin is still in there, struggling beneath the weight of Darth Vader. She sees it in his eyes sometimes, in the way he looks at the children when he thinks no one is watching. But she also knows the dark side's hold on him is strong, too strong to break easily. Days pass, and the tension within the Imperial Palace grows heavier with each moment. Anakin, now fully entrenched in his role as Darth Vader, finds himself torn between his duties to the Empire and the quiet life he wishes to protect with Padme and their children. Palpatine's words echo constantly in his mind. Attachments are weakness. But Anakin's bond with his family remains strong, pulling at him, complicating his loyalty to the Emperor. In the dark halls of the palace, Padme remains vigilant. She senses the growing danger surrounding them, knowing that Palpatine watches their every move. Her quiet defiance continues, nurturing Luke and Leia in secret, keeping them safe from the Emperor's influence. She remains calm on the surface, but deep inside, she's preparing. Something is coming. The tension in the Imperial Palace is reaching its peak, and now Anakin is faced with a decision that could change everything. Will he stay loyal to Palpatine and the dark side, or will his love for Padme and the children pull him back?
Night has fallen over Coruscant, and the Imperial Palace looms over the city like a dark fortress. Inside, Padme Amidala moves swiftly through her chambers, her face set with determination. Luke and Leia, no longer infants but still young, stand nearby, holding tightly onto her robes, barely able to keep their balance. The twins, wide-eyed and quiet, sense something is wrong, but Padme can't afford to calm them now. Tonight is her only chance. Anakin, now Darth Vader, has been sent on a nearby mission by Palpatine. An uprising in a neighboring system requires his presence, giving Padme the briefest of windows to act. She crouches down, her heart pounding as she gathers a few essential belongings. "Stay close to me," she whispers to Luke and Leia, her voice firm but soft. "We're leaving tonight." The twins, still too young to fully understand, nod and clutch her hands with their tiny fingers, barely able to walk on their own. Padme glances toward the door, where her trusted handmaiden waits anxiously. "Everything is ready, my lady," the handmaiden whispers. Bail Organa's ship is standing by outside the palace. Padme nods and lifts Luke onto her hip, gripping Leia's hand tightly. Every step must be perfect. She knows the Imperial Guards patrol every hallway, but she has spent days planning their route through the palace's hidden passageways. These tunnels, known only to a few, might be their only hope. As they slip out of her chambers, the walls feel as though they are closing in on her. Every sound, every distant footstep, could be the one that leads to their capture. Moving carefully through the dimly lit corridors, Padme's mind is racing. Palpatine knows the value of her children. Luke and Leia, heirs to Anakin's power, represent the future of the dark side if the Emperor can get his hands on them. Her only hope is to escape before Palpatine realizes what she's doing. The hidden passageways twist and turn beneath the palace, and Padme keeps her grip firm on Leia's hand as the twins shuffle forward. They are slow, stumbling with each step, but she doesn't let go. Just a little farther, she thinks, her heart pounding with urgency. Outside the palace walls, Bail Organa stands hidden in the shadows, near the secluded landing pad where his ship is waiting. The cool night air is thick with tension as he paces back and forth, checking his communicator repeatedly. Time is slipping away. He knows how dangerous this is, not just for him, but for Padme and the children. If they're caught, there's no going back. The Emperor's spies are everywhere, and if Palpatine realizes what Padme is attempting, he will stop at nothing to take the twins. Bail glances toward the palace's towering spires, anxiety written across his face. Where is she? The minutes feel like hours, every shadow stretching too long. The hum of the ship's engines is low, but it feels deafening in the silence of the night. Finally, movement catches his eye. Emerging from the darkness, Padme appears, holding Luke on one hip and guiding Leia along with her free hand. The children look frightened but quiet, their small steps faltering as they struggle to keep up. The low hum of the engines reverberates in the air, a reminder that safety is within reach. Bail Organa rushes ahead, signaling to the pilot that they are close. Relief begins to wash over Padme as they near the ramp. Her children, though frightened, have been brave, and for the first time tonight, she feels like they might just make it. But then, the high-pitched whine of a missile cuts through the night. Padme's eyes widen in horror as she instinctively pulls Luke and Leia close. wrapping her body around them just as the missile strikes the ship with a deafening explosion. The blast wave is enormous, tearing through the landing pad. Fire and metal debris erupt into the air, and Padme feels the force of the explosion slam into her. She's thrown backward, her arms still tightly wrapped around her children. Everything goes black for a moment. The sound of the explosion rings in her ears, and the acrid smell of smoke fills the air. When Padme comes to, she's lying on the ground, her body aching from the impact. Her face stings with pain, and as she moves to sit up, she feels the warmth of blood trickling down her cheek. There are scratches on her face, and the skin around her eyes and forehead is smeared with dirt and blood. She blinks, disoriented, but her first thought is for the twins. Her arms are still wrapped around them, and she carefully pulls back to check. Luke and Leia are crying, shaken by the blast, but they are safe. Only a few scratches mar their small bodies. Padme breathes a sigh of relief, but her body is weak, and pain radiates through her ribs. Her hands tremble as she pushes herself up, trying to regain her bearings. Bail groans nearby, also recovering from the blast. He has a few cuts and bruises, but he pulls himself to his feet, dazed but alive. Padme looks around frantically, her heart pounding with fear. The ship that was supposed to carry them to safety is nothing more than a flaming heap of metal. Flames and thick smoke billow from the wreckage, lighting up the dark landing pad. Her mind races as she clutches her children close. They're exposed, out in the open, and the blast has drawn attention. They have no way out. Just as she begins to gather herself, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoes through the smoke-filled air. Padme stiffens, her eyes widening in fear. She knows exactly who it is before she even sees him. From the shadows, a dark figure emerges. His black robes swirl around him as he steps forward, his face twisted into a smirk of triumph. He surveys the scene, his eyes cold and calculating as they lock onto Padme and the children.
Did you really think you could escape me, Padme? These children, do you know how valuable they are to my empire?
Padme struggles to her feet, wincing in pain as she pulls Luke and Leia closer to her. She's injured, her face streaked with blood, but she refuses to let fear control her.
You won't take them?
Her voice shaking but filled with defiance. She stands tall, even though her body is weakened. Palpatine's smile widens, his eyes narrowing.
You were never going to leave with them. Now, I can rid Lord Vader of his final weakness. These children will be far more powerful than he ever was.
Padme's breathing is ragged, her body aching from the explosion. But she refuses to back down. Luke and Leia cling to her, their small hands gripping her dress, their tears cutting through the soot on their faces. She can feel the fear rolling off them, but she tries to stay calm. Even as Palpatine steps closer, his presence like a shadow of death looming over them. Palpatine's smirk never wavers as he surveys the scene, his dark eyes gleaming with twisted satisfaction.
Lord Vader has been blinded by his attachment to you, but that ends tonight. With your death, his final weakness will be purged, and the children, they will belong to the dark side. They will be molded into the greatest Sith the galaxy has ever known.
Padme's heart hammers in her chest, but she stands tall, refusing to let Palpatine see her fear.
Anakin will never let you have them. He will come for them, and he will come for you,
she says, her voice strong despite the tremble in her limbs. But Palpatine only laughs, a low, chilling sound that echoes through the smoke-filled landing pad.
Lord Vader is already mine. He is too far gone. He has already betrayed everything he once held dear. And soon, he will see the truth. With your death, his final ties to the light will be severed.
Without warning, Palpatine raises his hand, and Padme feels the invisible grip of the Force tighten around her throat. Her eyes widen in horror as she is lifted off the ground, her feet dangling helplessly. She gasps, clawing at her neck as the pressure builds, choking her breath. Luke and Leia scream, their small voices filled with terror, but Padme's only thought is to protect them. She tries to reach out, but the invisible force is too strong. Palpatine's smile is cold as he watches her struggle, his hand raised in a gesture of control.
With your death, their training will begin.
Padme's vision begins to blur as the grip around her throat tightens. Her lungs burn as she struggles to draw air, her body writhing in pain. She can feel the darkness closing in, suffocating her, but she refuses to give up. She has to protect her children. She has to hold on. With the last of her strength, she manages to turn her head, her eyes locking onto Luke and Leia. "I love you," she whispers, her voice barely audible through the crushing pressure. Palpatine watches her with cold detachment, as though her life is nothing more than a stepping stone to his ultimate victory.
The Skywalkers are mine.
He hisses, triumph dripping from every word.
No, they are not!
Suddenly, an overwhelming force blast hits Palpatine, throwing him backward with immense power. His body slams violently into the stone walls of the palace with a deafening crash, cracking the surface and sending debris tumbling to the ground. The impact shakes the entire landing pad as Palpatine crumples for a moment against the wall, stunned by the sheer force of the blow. Padme, gasping for breath, feels the invisible chokehold around her throat release as her body drops to the ground. She coughs, her chest heaving, desperately trying to catch her breath. Dazed and weak, she looks up and sees him, Anakin Skywalker, standing tall and fierce, the air around him vibrating with energy. Anakin rushes to her side, dropping to his knees, his face etched with concern.
Padme, are you all right?
His voice, usually so controlled, is filled with urgency as he cups her face, brushing back her hair and taking in her injuries. Padme coughs again, her voice shaky but full of relief. "Anakin," she whispers, her eyes glistening with tears as she looks at him. Anakin turns his gaze to Luke and Leia, who are sobbing, terrified from the chaos that has unfolded around them. He reaches out, placing a hand on each of their heads, gently calming them.
The children, they're safe.
His voice soothing as he tries to comfort them. He looks back to Padme, his expression darkening with concern and anger.
I felt a disturbance in the Force. I knew you were going to do something, so I returned.
His eyes narrow as he glances toward the remnants of Bail Organa's destroyed ship and the cracked walls of the palace. His voice drops to a deadly whisper.
Palpatine tried to kill you.
He says, the rage building in his chest.
This ends today.
Padme, her strength returning in faint gasps, looks up at him, her hand trembling as it reaches for his.
Anakin, save our children.
She whispers, the fear in her voice unmistakable. Before Anakin can respond, a hiss of malice cuts through the smoke-filled air. From the shadows, Palpatine rises, his body floating eerily back to the ground, robes swirling around him. His face is twisted with fury, the cracks in the palace wall behind him a testament to the sheer force of Anakin's attack.
Lord Vader, you dare to go against me? You think you can defy me?
Anakin stands, his eyes locking onto Palpatine's with a fierce intensity. He moves to place himself between Padme, the children, and the Emperor, his hand resting on the hilt of his lightsaber. His stance is firm, unwavering. Palpatine steps forward, his eyes blazing with rage.
You belong to me, Lord Vader. The power, the Empire, everything I promised you. You would throw it all away for them.
Anakin's face hardens and his grip on his lightsaber tightens. No more, he says, his voice cold, resolute. This ends now. Palpatine's eyes narrow, his hands slowly rising. The force around him crackles with dark energy, sparks of lightning beginning to form at his fingertips.
You are a fool, Lord Vader.
Palpatine snarls. The tension in the air is suffocating as the force between them swells, the energy of the impending battle thickening with each passing second. Anakin steps forward, his face set in determination, prepared to face the Emperor head-on. Palpatine's face twists with anger, his eyes blazing yellow as he hisses.
You dare to defy your Emperor, Lord Vader? You think you can stand against me? I made you what you are. Without me, you are nothing.
Anakin's expression remains resolute.
Liar! I was blinded by you! You will not touch my family!
Palpatine's eyes narrow as the dark side surges around him. Without warning, he ignites his crimson lightsaber, the red blade hissing to life with a menacing glow. Anakin's grip tightens on his own saber as Palpatine lunges forward, the dark side fueling his every strike. Their blades clash in a furious explosion of red light, the air vibrating with the force of their power. Each strike from Palpatine is vicious, precise, fueled by the dark energy coursing through him. Anakin meets his attack head-on, parrying each blow with ferocious determination. Their lightsabers move like blurs, the two Sith Lords locked in a deadly dance. Sparks fly with every collision, the sound of their sabers slicing through the air echoing across the landing pad. Palpatine snarls, his movements unnaturally fast and aggressive, as if the dark side itself is pushing him forward. Anakin, his body tense with concentration, holds his ground, but the conflict within him is evident. His strikes are powerful, but not as relentless as they once were. The dark side within him flickers.
You are weak, Lord Vader. You could have had everything, but you threw it all away. For them.
My family is everything!
He roars, the anger surging through him, but not the cold fury of the dark side. This time, it's the fire of love and protection. As the battle rages on, Bail Organa, watching from the wreckage of the ship, scrambles to his communicator. He knows the fight can't last forever, and they need to escape before Palpatine's attention shifts back to Padme and the children. "We need extraction, now!" Bail shouts into his comlink. Moments later, the sound of roaring engines fills the air as a ship hovers into view above the landing pad, its lights flashing as it lowers toward them. Amid the flashing lights and the furious sounds of the duel, Anakin catches sight of Padme, standing with the children, fear and concern etched on her face. His heart aches, knowing what's at stake. In the heat of the battle, he turns to her, his voice booming over the chaos.
Go! Take the children to safety!
Padme hesitates for a moment, her eyes locking onto Anakin's, but she knows she has no choice. Gathering Luke and Leia in her arms, she begins to run toward the ship, her heart pounding in her chest. The sound of lightsabers clashing fills the air behind her, but she can't look back. Not yet. Palpatine's eyes burn with hatred as he watches Padme flee with the children. The dark side flares inside him, his fury boiling over. With a sharp motion, he extends his hand toward Padme, his fingers crackling with dark energy. Streams of blue lightning shoot from his fingertips, hurtling toward her and the children. Anakin sees the danger and, without hesitation, throws himself between them. His lightsaber is raised high, deflecting the deadly lightning away from Padme and the twins. The sheer force of the dark energy crashes against his blade, and Anakin grits his teeth as he absorbs the impact. But Palpatine pours more and more of his power into the lightning, his face contorted with malevolent glee. Anakin staggers under the onslaught, his body trembling as the lightning crackles across his lightsaber. His strength is waning. The conflict within him has weakened his connection to the dark side. And now, as he stands against the Emperor's raw power, it begins to take its toll. Padme, reaching the ship, watches in horror as Anakin struggles. Bail, already aboard, helps her get Luke and Leia into the ship, urging her to hurry. But Padme can't tear her eyes away from Anakin, standing alone against the Emperor's fury. Her heart breaks as she watches him falter, the lightning beginning to overwhelm him.
Anakin!
Tears streaming down her face, Anakin's eyes meet hers for one brief, heartbreaking moment, tears brimming in his own.
Go! Take them! And go!
Padme hesitates for just a second longer, her gaze locked on Anakin, before finally stepping into the ship. She clutches Luke and Leia to her chest as the ramp begins to close, her heart shattering with every passing second. The ship's engines roar to life, and as it begins to lift off, Palpatine's lightning intensifies. With a final burst of power, the dark energy rips Anakin's lightsaber from his grasp, sending it flying into the distance. Anakin falls to his knees, his body racked with pain as the lightning courses through him. High above, Padme watches from the viewport, her eyes never leaving Anakin. The distance grows, but she can still see him, still feel him. Just as the ship ascends, she sees the Emperor ignite his lightsaber once more. Her heart stops as Palpatine strides forward, his red blade cutting through the air. 2 swift strikes. Padme's breath catches in her throat as she watches Anakin's body fall to the ground, motionless. Her vision blurs with tears, the image of Anakin's collapse burned into her mind. The ship speeds away, carrying her and the children to safety, but leaving behind everything she loves. The ship carrying Padme, Luke, Leia, and Bail Organa flies into the night, away from the wreckage of the battle, away from the tragedy that has just unfolded. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with grief. Padme sits on the floor of the ship, clutching her children tightly, her body trembling with silent sobs. Tears streak down her face as she stares out the viewport, her eyes unfocused, replaying the image of Anakin's fall over and over in her mind. Weeks pass. Bail Organa has taken Padme and the children to his palace on Alderaan, where they live quietly, away from the prying eyes of the Empire. The palace is vast and grand, its stone walls towering above lush green landscapes, but to Padme, it feels like a cage. Her heart remains heavy with loss, but she pushes on, her love for Luke and Leia her only source of strength. Bail works tirelessly to bring allies together, to build the foundations of the rebellion that will one day rise against the Empire. In secret meetings, they whisper of resistance, of hope, of taking back what was lost. But for now, they wait, gathering their forces and preparing for the day when they can strike back. Padme watches the children as they play in the palace gardens, their laughter a rare brightness in her dark world. Luke and Leia are her light, the only pieces of Anakin she has left. Every time she looks at them, she is reminded of the man Anakin was, the man who loved them fiercely. But she is also reminded of the price they paid. Far away, deep within the Emperor's palace, shadows dance across a sterile chamber. The rhythmic hum of machines fills the air, their cold mechanical arms working with eerie precision. At the center of the room lies the broken body of Anakin Skywalker, what remains of him barely recognizable. His flesh is scarred, his limbs severed from the battle, now being replaced by cold metallic replacements. Palpatine watches from the shadows, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The dark side flows through the room as his twisted creation begins to take shape, a machine, a weapon of his design.
Lord Vader, you are reborn.
Anakin, or what was once Anakin, stirs on the table. The hiss of his new mechanical breath fills the room. Slowly his head turns and glowing red eyes meet the Emperor's. The transformation is complete, no longer human, almost entirely machine. Palpatine steps forward, his smile wicked, his triumph complete.
You will serve me, as you always have.
The figure, now more machine than man, rises, his new limbs clanking as he stands before his master. Palpatine's voice drops to a deadly whisper.
And that's it for part 2 of What If Anakin Defeated Obi Wan. The story is just heating up, and the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance. Will the Emperor succeed in his dark plans? And what lies ahead for Padme, Luke, and Leia? We're constantly working to uplift the quality of our videos, and it's not an easy or cheap process. Your support is incredibly appreciated. It helps us keep the series going strong. So, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on where the story should go next. Every like, comment, and share goes a long way. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. See you in the next one.